Lyda Ragonese is the Supervising Director for the Office of English as a New Language, World Languages, and Bilingual Education in the Syracuse City School District. She is a Hmong American from Laos and is a fluent speaker of Hmong. She began her teaching career in 1993 as an English as a second language teacher at Franklin Elementary before moving to Fraser K-8 school in Syracuse. She has her TESOL certification from Lemoyne College and an MA in reading education from Syracuse University. After leaving the classroom, her experiences varied in the fields of student learning objectives and annual professional performance review, and was elected the treasurer of the Teachers Union in Syracuse. She has served as an adjunct professor at Lemoyne College and earned her certificate of advanced studies in educational leadership from Syracuse University. Welcome to RBERNing Questions, a professional learning podcast where we answer your most compelling questions about teaching, serving, and supporting multilingual learners. I'm your host, Jasmine Coaxum, and through our talks, I look forward to bringing the methods, philosophies, and stories behind teaching multilingual learners to light. Let's get into the show. Okay, so hello. We are now with Lyda Ragonese. We are really excited to have you here on our RBERNing Questions podcast today. We're really particularly excited because RBERNing Questions, the RBERN, it's basically out of Syracuse. And so you are coming to us from Syracuse, right? And representing that school district and what's happening there. I'm really excited to dive in and really discuss some of the particulars of what's important to that district. But first, just tell me a little bit about your background. For example, at this particular moment, what exactly is your role in education?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be a part of this. So with my background, I am currently the Supervising Director of English as a New Language, World Language, our bilingual education department. And this year, I've been granted the privilege of overseeing our Native American program in the Syracuse School District. So I'm learning a lot from the wonderful instructors of that program, and I'm really excited to do more with that program. So I have a pretty huge role in overseeing all the different programs. I have deeper knowledge with English as a New Language because I was an ELL teacher for 18 years, and I was in a few other different roles in the district, and then I have been an administrator in our office for the past 5 years.
Okay, so wow, 18 years. That's quite a span of time. So I'm wondering, what was the inspiration for you deciding to become an English language teacher?
During my college years, I had attended Lemoyne College, and I was asked to help with interpretation. I speak Hmong, grew up in a Hmong-speaking household, and at that time, Syracuse had a huge community of Hmong families. And when I helped with interpretation at the schools, I met some wonderful teachers in the Syracuse School District who you could just tell they loved working with our ELL students and our families. And they were there for the right reason. And as I pursued my studies at Lemoyne, I finally changed it over to education. And in seeking my English to speakers of other languages certification so that I could be an ELL teacher. And the Syracuse School District was the only district I applied to. My mother had worked there for many years as the Laotian and Hmong interpreter. So I was very aware of the district. I had attended school there up until my freshman year in high school. Then my family moved to a surrounding district, Liverpool. But I had always wanted to go back to Syracuse. I remember having wonderful friends, wonderful teachers, and I just felt like I fit in really well. So that is what my story is all about and how I became a part of Syracuse. And I was a teacher for 18 years, but I just finished my 30th year in the school district.
Wow. Okay. Now, so you said Hmong, correct? Hmong
Yes,
from Laos. Yes.
that's right.
Okay. And so can you tell me a little bit about maybe your experience in Laos with education and maybe how that could have had an impact on any of the work that you are currently doing? And I just want to say that previously I had Dr. Helene Marshall on this podcast. And when I read that you were Hmong from Laos, it was really interesting and exciting for me because I have worked quite a bit with Dr. Helene Marshall, and she actually spent some time with some Hmong refugees. And she talks about how it shaped her understanding of the way specific cultures learn and how we can't just expect that everyone is on the same page in terms of the way that we structure our classroom activities here in America, right? She talked about like oral traditions, etc. So, when I read that you were Hmong, I definitely wanted to tap into and hear about some of your experiences educationally and how that might have affected the work that you're doing now.
Just hearing what you're saying about what Helene has said about the Hmong, it does seem like she has gotten to know them really well. I was born in Laos, and the Hmong we're not Laotian, we are an ethnic group that had resided in Southeast Asia and stemming really from northern China, if you look at the Hmong history. And my family came right after the Vietnam War. Even though we were in Laos, we were impacted by the war. The Hmong that are in the United States now had sided with the Americans during the war. And because of that, after the war, many of them were persecuted. Fortunately, my father had connections, and we were one of the first Hmong families to be able to leave Laos. We settled in Thailand in a refugee camp for a very short time, and because of his connections, he was able to get us out of Thailand, and we chose to reside in the United States. And fortunately, we were able to find a safe place in Syracuse, New York. And back in the 70s, Syracuse was and still is a great place for refugees and immigrants to settle, very welcoming, with refugee resettlement agencies that are there to support them. And the school district has always been welcoming to this population of students. I did not attend school in Laos. I was only 4 years old when my family came.
Okay.
So we came in February of 1976, and I entered kindergarten that September of 1976. So I do remember my father was fluent in English. He had done his high school and college studies in Australia. So he came back and taught English to us. And so I do remember learning some broken English from my mom and preparing me for school. And growing up, I had my father who was fluent in Hmong and English, my mother who was fluent in Hmong. They both knew the Laotian language. My father also knew French because that was taught in the schools in Laos. And growing up, a bilingual household.
Yes.
And eventually, probably now, my husband is half Sicilian and half something else. And so I don't use my Hmong as much. The community in Syracuse has gotten much smaller. So I do tend to use English more, unless I'm with my family. And then everyone knows when you're in an Asian household, there's never a dull moment or a quiet moment when the family's together. But when I came to the States and started school, at that time, there were not many schools with an ELL program. So I did attend a school that did not have a program, and I was just your regular ed student and taking all the regular classes, and I excelled. I was a very motivated student, very inquisitive, I think because of my father's bilingualism and able to really support me with English and Hmong, that I was able to do well in school and actually not be in an ENL program. And I think about that as an adult, as to why I wasn't, because did have cousins at that time that were in the program, but I just think I was able to just learn the language pretty quick and able to assimilate. And I had great teachers too. I had great teachers in elementary, middle, and high school in Syracuse that I will never forget. I never felt that I was different. Always felt very comfortable. So that's why I love being in Syracuse, and I don't see myself going anywhere else.
Oh, wow. Great. So, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of what's around us linguistically, the linguistic resources that we're able to get from a young age at home definitely contributes to how you start to see language and interaction and everything once you get into school. So, that's really great that you found support with your teachers, etc. Now, I know that right now you you're overseeing or you're educating about 150 teachers, ENL and world language teachers right now in your current position. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I'm so lucky to be doing what I'm doing. I have over 100 ENL teachers, around 50 world language teachers, two Native American instructors, and I work closely with Seymour Dual Language Academy, which is our one school in the district that has a bilingual program, pre-K to fifth grade in all the classrooms. Yes, many teachers, many programs, but we all have one thing in common, and it is valuing language and culture. And no matter who I'm talking to or which department, which program I'm talking about, it's all about language and culture. There's the student support piece where not only do we teach our students, but we support the students and the families in other ways too. So we provide nationality workers who there's five of them, but between the five of them, they speak around 10 languages, which are our top languages in the district. We have three language assessors who their full-time job is students who come in and may be potential English language learners. They interview the students, they test the students, they interview the families. They really get to know the families really well. And then based on their results, we place them in an ENL program in a school that is going to support the students. So there's many other things that our department does aside from just the teaching and learning piece. And that's why I have so much fun in my job, because we have our coaches that support our teachers, but we have other individuals in our department that supports the families. And the students after school, during the weekends, needing interpretation services. And we meet with our community-based organizations that focus on working with immigrants and refugees. So that is the fun part of that whole job, is you really get to provide this comprehensive support the best that we can. We can always do better, but it's just not the teaching piece.
Okay, so I noticed that in that statement you said families like three or four or four times, and I just want to mention that a couple of years ago, back in maybe 2021, it was the graduation rates, okay, in the Syracuse City School District hit an all-time high of 70.7%, and that for ELLs, the ELLs really brought it home in terms of increasing their graduation rates by 20%. Now, in this article that I was looking at, it really stresses the primary reason as more family involvement. And I think that's proven by the statement that you just made a minute ago. So what I'm curious about right now is what else the district did to encourage this type of increase in graduation among ELLs, and how can other districts that are listening to this podcast, how can they learn from some of these maybe initiatives or methodologies and basically emulate such a really strong graduation rate?
One of the best things that came out of the pandemic was our need to communicate with our families more effectively and work with our community-based organizations in a much better strategic way. And what we started doing was not only like a few times a year connecting with our community-based organizations, but really being strategic in meeting with them every month, and of course virtually at that time.
Yeah.
And so we were able to meet with more individuals, meeting with them every month, really finding out what they offer the families and communicating with the caseworkers and the managers there of what the district is offering so that we could align our understanding of how we can best service our students and our families. And by doing that, we had opportunities where we provided professional developments to their staff as to the type of digital products that we use in the school so that they could help the students when the students are going to their programs after school or in the weekends or in the summer. We also had a direct line of communicating with a community-based organization that supported families when school is not in session. And so just improving that communication, it was a team effort. And I believe that really played a big part. Also, the wonderful ELL teachers I have. They are phenomenal. One of the best teachers, I think, in the Syracuse School District because we meet, we have a plan, we talk about things, and then I share with them our vision for the department, and then they do the heavy lifting. They're the ones that go back, meet as a team, and they say, this is our vision for the department. We want to connect with families more, and they do that. And we work alongside with them for the families that we were not able to connect with. We reached out to our teachers and they were able to connect with them. We utilize our support personnel at the building, our social workers, our psychologists, our family liaisons that every building has. And we made sure that we connected with every ELL student in the district, and not only once. We made sure that we connected with them probably every other week to make sure that they had the materials that they needed, that they felt comfortable in what was happening, looking at the social and emotional piece to the family and not just the academic piece. And that was the best thing that came out of it because we are still communicating with our community-based organizations. And we have now monthly parent sessions that we offer for our ELL families. And we have interpreters there to support them. We can easily call up or walk into one of our community-based organizations and share with them ideas that we have, and then we just put it into action. So it was an effort amongst everyone in the community, and I really think that is the true reason why. The school district can't do it alone.
Okay, so I'm hearing three really important tips. The first one is to really take advantage of community resources you have and to communicate with people that are in key positions that might be able to work hand in hand with your schools just in order to improve the situation holistically, right? So not just on the academic end. And then the second thing that I was hearing there was teachers, right? The teachers themselves, really establishing a great rapport with the teachers and having teachers who are really dedicated to high standards of excellence in terms of making sure that ELLs are educated. And then the third piece, of course, was the students, right? The students themselves and making sure that I want to interpret it as like an open door policy for the students, right? It's definitely connecting with them, letting them know that you're there for them. You want to assist them in any way possible, and that all of these three key points kind of coming together is what really helped you to achieve this really great graduation rate, right? Or this increase in the graduation rate. Okay, fantastic. So now part of the mission of the Syracuse City School District English as a New Language and Bilingual Education Department is to develop confident, lifelong learners who can actively contribute in their global world. So I am taking that directly from the mission statement. So I would like to know, how would you define a confident, lifelong learner? What are the characteristics of a confident, lifelong learner? And what are the keys to developing such learners in the English language learning community in Syracuse?
A big piece is really feeling a part of the school community, the community as a whole. And so seeing your purpose, knowing that if you are absent from school one day, my teachers notice that. And when I come back the next day, they ask me like, "Oh, you weren't here yesterday, and is everything okay? And I'm glad you made it today." And so we have some schools in the district where we have large population of ELLs, and not only our ENL teachers, but our content area teachers and the support staff that are very supportive of our students, giving these students a purpose and that their language and culture is valued in the school. We still have a long ways to go, but we have done a really good job of welcoming our families. And I think that plays a big role because when you feel comfortable and accepted, you are going to start finding opportunities to be purposeful in the school environment. And you will then be very confident in talking about how you're different, but we're alike in some ways too. So our department itself, and during the summers and during the breaks, we offer our Steps to the Seal program. New York State offers this New York State Seal of Biliteracy, where you have to prove that you are bilingual or trilingual, and there are multiple tasks you have to complete to prove that. But we also, that's senior year, but we also have a program that we offer for our younger students where they get to deepen their knowledge of their first language and English. And the whole session is all about writing in your first language, reading and speaking your first language. And everyone in that program values that and also transferring that to English. So we have summer opportunities and school year opportunities where students can be a part of that. And you are actually you're so respected and valued because of that knowledge that you have. Mm-hmm. You are bilingual or trilingual, and what a wonderful asset to have. And this is our third or fourth year of running the program, and we have more and more students who take part in it. We also have our Pathways to the Seal that we have implemented at the preschool level, fifth grade level, and eighth grade level that mimic our seal of biliteracy, and that if they are working through this process of the pathway and able to show their bilingualism, you don't have to be totally proficient one or the other, but you are using this second or third language, and then you will be recognized for this asset. And so the students get a little medal, they get a certificate, but really valued for their knowledge. Multiple languages. Our first year, we had it last year, and we are looking forward to another year of that. So we're finding opportunities to embrace these students and get them to feel value in their school community. And I think by doing that, you will have confident students.
For sure. Now, this piece that you mentioned, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I would like to highlight. But what you mentioned in terms of multilingualism or bilingualism being an asset is very important, because I feel like in the days when you and I were going to school, okay, in elementary school, people didn't realize the fact that a person having confidence in their first language, right, and really being able to express themselves in their first language is a foundation for them to be able to feel confident expressing themselves in other languages, right? So that's a piece that's very important, is really valuing that foundation before you build upon it. and in order to really achieve the confidence, as you said. And then something else that you said was just really touching to me, because I had a conversation with a really strong principal, okay, a few episodes ago, Principal Power Pugh. And one of the things that she talked about was the notion of being invisible versus being visible and feeling visible. And that's the first thing that you said, right? Is that the students know that someone is paying attention to what they are doing, okay? Someone really cares about whether or not they've shown up for class, right? How are they doing? How are they progressing? And if you feel invisible, you feel like no one is paying attention to those things, and paying attention to you as a person, as a whole, then of course you're not going to have the confidence to try and really strive academically, right? So I think that those are really two pieces that are very important that you mentioned. Okay, so now I want to know specifically in your region, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that the schools are facing when it comes to providing excellent education for ELLs, and how would you suggest overcoming it?
Obstacles that I faced when I started as a new teacher in 1993. And after a while, I'm not frustrated by it because I realize that it's just the nature of having new educators in the field. But I think it's understanding how it is to work with our English language learners and our families. We still have individuals who are still struggling at times. And what I've come to realize is it's not something that I need to be frustrated about, because I just need to continue on with the advocacy and with building capacity within my department and making connections with people outside of my department so that they could be advocates for these students too. And so it is just building that knowledge and working on that skill set with not only teachers, but our transportation department, our food service workers. They play a big role in the lives of our students. So getting everyone to understand the struggles that our students face and how it is to learn another language when you are an immigrant or a refugee, and that there are priorities that you are balancing within your own family. School is one of them, but you're also trying to survive. Your family is trying to adjust to this new culture. And you can have families that have been here for a little while, but they still are adjusting. And the adjustment period takes a long time, depending on the family structure that a student is in. It's it it hasn't changed in that we still have individuals who need to build that skill set, but now we are fortunate enough to be able to provide that support virtually if we need to, or in person. We have new administrators who are new to the field that may have limited experience with our English language learners, and it's getting them on board so that they will understand. And it moves up, to our superintendent or our deputy superintendents. And fortunately, in Syracuse, we have a wonderful superintendent, a mayor who supports our families and students. So that is half the battle, is getting those in power to understand our families and our students. And the other piece now is just making sure that any of the new folks in our district really understand our students so that we can provide the supports that they need to be successful in our district.
Okay, now in this article that I referenced earlier that really talked about the increase in graduation rates, it was in the News House. I'm assuming that's a school district newsletter.
That's Syracuse University, I believe.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And so you basically in the article were explaining the blueprint that the New York State Department of Education really believes in. And this speaks to what you were just talking about, which is that all teachers are teachers of English language learners. So you said in the past, it was always the thought that the ENL teacher was the one responsible, but the true belief is that we all all, whether it's the physical education teacher, the art teacher, the principal, are responsible for educating these students. And I love that quote. I think that's fantastic because as we've been discussing, this is definitely not only a community effort, but a school-wide effort, right? So I guess my question in here is, how can we get all educators to really embrace this belief? Because I think that it's still out there. That's the job of the ENL teacher, right? I'm not an ENL teacher. I teach science and that's that, right? So how can you what do you think are some tips to maybe get them on board and realizing this?
I think it's, like I mentioned, getting those outside of my department on board with that. So getting my assistant superintendents and my superintendent to understand that piece, because not only us in the ENL field, we are true advocates, and we say that all the time, but we need others outside of our department to be saying that also. Getting the directors of social studies and science and English and math to be saying the same thing. If we could use the same language, that will funnel down to our teachers. And that will be the norm. Once everyone starts saying that, yes, we are all teachers of these ELLs. No longer will we say, oh, they're not ready for my class because they need to be proficient in English first before they can enter my content class. But now it's the student is in my class and I'm his or her teacher, and I'm going to provide the best scaffolds that I can and use the best strategies that I've learned from my professional development to ensure that the student is engaging and learning in my classroom.
So has there ever been, I'm just curious, like maybe a meeting of the minds, because a lot of things are in theory for people, right? So if they've never experienced having to learn a new language, okay, coming into a new country, then it's really difficult to have the empathy and to act on these things, right? Has there been anything where you've facilitated this, I don't know, a meeting of the minds, as I said, like maybe where someone is explaining or talking to various administrators, et cetera, very candidly about some of these experiences to get them to really put them into perspective?
Thank you for that question, because I think there's so much that we do in the district that unless I list it out, I do forget some things. But we actually put our school leaders in a scenario where they were like English language learners, but we put them in a classroom with Arabic was the language and another one was Spanish. So we knew that with Spanish, there were varying levels of Spanish proficiencies within the leaders. So that's how it is with our ELLs in our classroom. Some are at the expanding level, whereas some are at the entering level. And even with the scenario with our principals being in a Spanish classroom, where everything is taught in Spanish using one of our units in social studies, they really got a lot out of it because some principals just sat there. They were quiet the whole time. They were looking around. They were trying to use whatever skills that they had to learn the language. We also told some of the more Spanish dominant principals that you're going to try to use Spanish. You're not going to use English to help them. So really getting our leaders to understand how it is when you are a language learner. The Arabic lesson was really fun because not many of them knew that. Everyone was quiet in that classroom, but they were engaged and they took a lot from that too. And then with that experience, we had our building leaders bring that back to the school. And then we had staff meetings where we allowed the staff to experience that. So and it went from not just building principals, but our directors in our central office to assistant superintendents, they all took part in that. So just to get that experience of how it is to be a language learner, and especially at that entering level where you are using visually, you're looking around, you're looking for gestures, you need those visuals, you need those prompts to help you, because if not, you're going to struggle. And these are adults, educators too. Getting them into that situation was the best experience, I believe. And we haven't done that yet, but my goal is that we will do that in another language.
Excellent. That is just a perfect example of how to get people to really understand, really be in a learner's shoes, right? A
Hmm.
language learner's shoes. So that's great. That's great. I'm
Hmm.
glad that you shared that with us. So I'm going to just ask now. We've had a really great conversation. You've given us so many different tips, right? And I want to know, where can we find out more information about you, about your work, about what's happening in the district? If we want to keep our finger on the pulse of that, where can we find that information?
My department does have a web page. My information is there. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I sometimes love just getting phone calls from other school districts, and one thing leads to another. And not only do they learn from me, but I learn from them also. So feel free to contact me in that way. I also sit on the board of directors for New York SABE, which is the New York State Association for Bilingual Education, and I have been involved with them for more than a handful of years. And it is just an organization that I truly believe in and support, because the mission of the organization is to support students and families from multilingual households. And we involved families, politicians, school leaders, teachers, students, and it's a very powerful organization. And we have our next conference in Syracuse, New York.
Oh, fantastic. And when is this? When is it?
It's going to be on April 4th to the 6th of next
Okay.
year.
Mm-hmm.
And the president of New York SABE is the principal of Seymour Dual Language Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be an opportunity for a few attendees to come and visit our Dual Language Academy school, where it's a school-wide bilingual, dual language bilingual school. So we're very excited in highlighting the program, and we hope that everyone will be able to join us in April in Syracuse.
I've never actually been to Syracuse, and I feel like now I really just want to go and experience it, because you make it sound like it's just really, very welcoming atmosphere,
Hmm.
and one where, educators can thrive. So I'm going to ask you the final question that I ask all of the guests here on our Burning Questions, which is, what burning questions should today's educators consider in order to improve their service to the ELL community?
They should really consider, what is it that I can bring, and how can I impact the students and families that I teach, and how do I do that? And don't allow language to be the barrier, because now we have so many platforms and devices that we can use to communicate with our families. So don't use the language as a barrier. Take the time to listen to our families, to our students, and ask them how they're doing, and not just about school things. How are you doing at home? How's your family doing? And once you allow them that opportunity to talk about themselves, you will learn so much about them. And you will be impacted by what they have to say, because they bring such rich experiences, and that if they are not given the opportunity, that you might not know about. So please ask your students and families how they're doing. Ask them about their culture and their language. And if you can, try to learn a few phrases in that language, and use it when you see them. They'll be so happy.
Okay. It's been really great to have you on the show today, Lyda Ragonese, everyone. So thank you so much for your time today, and get back out there and go ahead and keep on doing what you're doing, serving the district. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Our Burning Questions, produced by Midstate Arborn at OCM BOCES. If you would like to learn more about today's guest or any of the resources we discussed, please visit Midstate Arbon's webpage at ocmboces.org. That's ocmboces.org. Join us next time, where we hope to answer more of your burning questions.